Hollywood is shut down. Is the world going to end? Are movies going to get made? Are TV shows going to happen? Is Breaking Bad season 59 and a half coming out on time? I don't know what's happening. I watch YouTube all day. So we'll have to wait and see what's going on. The next Barbenheimer may not happen on time. We may have to wait 5 years. I don't know. But it'll be an interesting time because the SAG-AFTRA is on strike. Some writer thing is on strike too. And we got opinions. Joined by Dexter Tarbox. This is the New England Take at NewEnglandTake.com. Welcome back to the show, Dexter.
Hey, AJ.
So it started off with the Hollywood Writers Guild going on strike, and everyone's like, oh, this is such a big deal, things are shutting down. And then the Actors Guild kind of like, all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, we're on strike too, guys. Did you forget that was happening like a couple weeks later, or about a month later, I want to say. And right now, Hollywood production as a whole is dead. I mean, it's basically COVID light, essentially, with how it stands. And I'm sure you got an opinion on Hollywood shutting down.
Sure. Well, yeah, as you said, I think this began as the Writers Guild going on strike over financial concern, and the Screen Actors Guild has sort of joined the fight. And I say, may it last 1,000 years. Firstly, there's the purely practical note. The WGA, the Writers Guild of America, minimums are already quite generous in terms of what these writers make. And I have little sympathy for someone who's crying over making in the neighborhood of $6,500 a week. And in my view, writers should thank their lucky stars that they're getting paid further residual income for the work that they did in the past at all. Name me another industry that does that. But there is, to me, a more important cultural reason why I'd be happy to see this strike drag on as long as possible. If we look back, I would say, to the early days of the whole motion picture industry, and specifically to the time when there was the adoption of what was called the Hays Code, which was very rigorously prescribed what content was and wasn't acceptable in film. And we see quite clearly that the early industry was extremely concerned with how cinematic portrayals could influence society. So, for instance, the code very strictly provided that immoral or otherwise criminal behavior was never glamorized. And moreover, actually, that it was always punished in the course of the story. And this is almost precisely the opposite of the current ethos of the entertainment industry. So I'm not going to endorse the idea that entertainment influences culture in a single direction, the way some people do when they talk about video games, for instance. It's almost certainly a reciprocal relationship, with the media reflecting culture and vice versa. But I cannot fathom that society will receive anything but a net benefit if we're bereft of Barbie 2, at least for the next decade or so. So I don't know. I figure let's all of us crack a book or take a walk in the woods and try to enjoy our reprieve from Hollywood for at least as long as it lasts.
Yeah, and the Hollywood studios are such a problem. Like their entire bent is profit motivated. There are aspects of which we'll dive into, especially with the Screen Actors Guild, where I think there's a real problem with future-wise because of technology and there needs to be reform. But for the Writers Guild to say artificial intelligence is going to take our jobs is definitely, like, this is the future. You got to roll with it. This is going to happen. You need to find a way to make it work with you. Yeah, it probably should be included in some way in your contract, and the corrupt studios not wanting to even discuss that, I think, is problematic. But you got the evil studios on the other side wanting to have, like, the Marvel failures that have been slowly accumulating over the last couple of years. Star Wars being a total failure when you look at the face of it, how Disney has screwed up both these properties, and then Indiana Jones. So Disney ends up being the poster child for evil studios. I don't know what to say. It's like they're the biggie when it comes to this, and them not wanting to discuss anything at all. I mean, you're basically not. Both sides are screwing the pooch when it comes to getting support, it seems like.
Well, yeah, and the CEO of Disney in particular has not done a very good job at trying to combat the image of sort of the evil corporate giant. Every statement that he's made has dug him deeper into that hole, for sure. But, as for AI, I don't I think that they are maybe looking a little bit too far ahead with their concerns on that. I don't know anyone who's a professional writer of any type who has ever said that they were able to produce a satisfactory story or content with AI alone. It's a tool, and that's the role that it serves right now. So to say that these jobs are in imminent danger of being wholly replaced, I think is jumping the gun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's countless. You talk about YouTube at the beginning. How many YouTubers over the last 6 months have gone? I have used ChatGPT to create my episode for this week. Show you how crappy it is. Like, well, yeah, it's terrible. My favorite ChatGPT story is the lawyer that used it to draft the argument for his case, and it hallucinated. Is it hallucinated? Is the term
I think that's the term that I've heard people using.
The artificial intelligence hallucinated cases. It outright made up the cases that this guy used. This idiot lawyer defended it to the bitter end. And
I think he got censured, too.
He got censured. He barely didn't get disbarred. He was really close to getting disbarred. He was going to fight it to the bitter end. I didn't lie. It's like, yeah, you did. We all know these cases don't exist. And when it comes to the creative end of the house, I mean, the AI is years and years away from being a productive thing with this. Yes, maybe, but you figure how often these contracts get negotiated. Guess what? It's going to be all negotiated from scratch again, because what we see right now with AI is not the same thing we're going to see in a few years. And that's where I think really the stronger case where I kind of think there needs to be a stronger discussion is the Screen Actors Guild side of the house. Mm-hmm. I think the Writers Guild, like, dude, you guys got to chill. Like, you got a ways away before the truly creative end of the house really is going to be impacted when it comes to the writing perspective. You're going to have to deal with some ChatGPT first drafts. That's just where life is going. You have no choice on that. Every journalistic outlet in the country has already accepted this a long time ago, and we're seeing all sorts of evil one-off media outlets that entirely live off of that, which is, once again, another discussion for another day, because it's a whole other can of worms. I think the Screen Actor Guild really has a case where they could really be saying, like, I really wish the studios would take their concerns more seriously, because they're literally talking about taking extras and being able to utilize their likeness within 1 day of filming, which tremendously screws over the extras and the secondary actors from getting use. It is not like Rogue One, Star Wars movie, was like the big one where they really show, like, they had Carrie Fisher and the other guy that's the big evil guy for the Empire were
I've never
entirely
seen it.
Yeah, we're entirely CGI. They were not there, and I rewatched it a couple weeks ago, and because it's been a couple years now, you can really see, like, oh, it's kind of uncanny valley. It doesn't look quite right. But back then, I mean, my God, it looks super realistic. And now you look at what they're doing with the latest Indiana Jones movie, where they're able to de-age Harrison Ford. Mm-hmm. I mean, de-aging, I mean, there's not that big of a jump between replacing faces and doing things like that. Like, there's a huge deal in the future with regards to studios basically being able to use people either from the dead or that they just filmed a week ago as if they never showed up on set.
I do think you raise a good point, and I think that, the danger is more imminent to the actors because it is. I mean, if you think back to what was the movie, the Scorsese movie, The Irishman, where they, I think, was one of the first sort of major, film-wide de-aging projects. It looked a little bit odd, but that was also several years ago. So the technology is evolving more rapidly, and it is more practicable every day, it seems, on that end. Though to me, it strikes me as something that is more properly handled, probably in the legal realm than on the picket line.
Yeah, that's valid. I think this is going to be a very nuanced thing that's going to take a long time to ultimately sort out and figure out what the best way to do. Because guess what? These extras and these major stars, they're, once again, just like with AI, this is going to happen. It's a matter of how exactly they handle it, and can we try and keep some integrity in the film industry, which is a joke on its own to say as a sentence. I wouldn't say like that. Like,
does it exist? Yeah.
as we see Mission Impossible 53 and a half that just came out. It really comes down to studios have just too much power. I mean, it's amazing to see what has happened with YouTube over the last decade, and to see like. My primary gig previously was in the tech sector, and to see like MKBHD and Linus Media Group and these outlets just expand into digital media empires entirely independently, entirely separate from these guilds that have that just build up the back end of finance that's required for everything, and the corruption that comes alongside these unions. I've had someone who worked in the movie industry in a previous life, Just Place. He's been on the show a couple times, and he's like, the stories he's got of the sketchiness and the moving money around that these companies did is atrocious. And I think you make a good point when you say, hey, let it shut down for a good long time, and maybe we can start seeing, instead of just weekly regular content sort of outlets, but maybe there's a chance for independent studios to really break outside of these crazy monopolies that SAG-AFTRA and the Writers Guild have.
Well, I think that's exactly it. That's one of the other principal advantages of this going on as long as it can, is perhaps we decentralize the entertainment industry a little bit further. As you point out, that's already happening naturally. But if this could accelerate that, because there is still a lot of power and a lot of money there, all the better.
Yeah, I talk about the problem of corporatism a fair bit on the show, and the movie industry is very unique, where you're basically required at this point to work with the unions. There's no workaround. It's not like when you go to your Amazon or your Walmart or your Target and such, as you're starting. Maybe a better comparison is the coffee industry. You look at Starbucks is starting to unionize all over the place. Dunkin' Donuts isn't necessarily. There's options within the industry of not having to necessarily be working with the union for better or worse. When you go to Hollywood, that's not an option. It does not exist. You're going to get sued to oblivion if you try and work outside of it. And there is a case to be made that because of these crooked studios, because they're so important with regards to getting viewership within movie theaters, it is big, and to be able to get on the streaming platforms. But that's the way of the past, man. That's going away. I mean, people can get their movies now on Netflix without having to touch any of these services, and to be able to see them more and more, the diversification of the industry, it can only make things better for everyone, I hope. I could also see an evil future where there's, once again, the centralization happens again and we end up in a really bad place. But at the moment, in 2023, I think it's exciting as a media creator to see where it's going.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And as far as I'm aware, there is no right-to-work legislation in California. So as long as the entertainment industry is centralized in that state, they can enforce union membership in a way that's detrimental to the creators, ultimately.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, because I guarantee it's going to be shut down for a while, because no one wants to play nice, and there's some strong personalities on both sides, and Dexter and I are just like, let's see what happens. It'll be fun. All right, Dexter Tarbox, thanks so much for joining me.
Great talking to you.
NewEnglandTake.com, like and subscribe. Check out our Substack, where you can get your episodes of the show weekly. Check out the NewEnglandTake.com to get all sorts of articles, videos, photos when I feel so inclined and I visit someplace interesting in New England. Check those out, and talk to you soon.